Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something truly mind-bending, really. Could the auroras, those incredible light shows in the sky, could they actually have characteristics of life?
Yeah, it's a wild thought, isn't it? We're talking about digging into the edge of what alive might even mean.
Exactly. This isn't just appreciating pretty lights. We're asking fundamental questions here.
And it's a fascinating mix because you've got the solid established science on one side and then these more speculative but really thought-provoking ideas on the other.
Right, and our aim in this deep dive is to explore both sides. What's the argument for, what's the argument against this idea of auroras being somehow lifelike?
And we're drawing heavily from that Sci-Blowing podcast episode, The Aurora Paradox. They touched on some interesting academic work, too, which we'll fold in.
Yeah, if you caught that episode, you'll know the kind of territory we're heading into. So, let's jump in, see where this leads.
Okay, first things first, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. Auroras. What are we actually looking at?
Good point. So the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, and Aurora Australis down south. Basically, it starts with the sun, right? It's constantly sending out this stream of charged particles.
The solar wind. Yep.
Then that solar wind slams into Earth's magnetic field, the magnetosphere, our planet's sort of protective bubble.
And that interaction is absolutely key. The field lines channel these energetic particles down towards the poles.
And then they hit the atmosphere.
Exactly. They collide with the gases way up high in the atmosphere. We're talking mainly oxygen and nitrogen.
Ah, okay. And the collision does what? Lights them up?
It excites them. It bumps their electrons into a higher energy state,
Yeah.
but they don't stay there for long.
Right, they have to fall back down.
And when they do, they release that extra energy as light, as photons. That's the glow you see.
Got it. And the different colors? That's not random, is it?
Not at all. It tells you what gas got hit and roughly how high up it happened, that really common green color. That's oxygen, typically around 100 kilometers up.
And I've seen pictures with red, too. Is that different?
Same gas, oxygen again, but much higher up, like closer to 300 kilometers. The energy interaction is a bit different up there.
Huh. And the purples and blues?
That's usually nitrogen getting excited. So you see, it's a layered thing, different processes happening at different altitudes.
It's already sounding complex, even just the physics. That layering
Yeah.
makes you wonder, doesn't it? If that kind of structure could be a step towards something more organized.
Well, it's certainly dynamic, and it's all part of what we call space weather. Solar flares, magnetic storms. They really affect how intense and structured the auroras get.
So the sun's activity directly shapes the display.
Absolutely. There's solid physics explaining how disturbances in the solar wind and the interplanetary magnetic field trigger these big geomagnetic storms, leading to brighter, more complex auroras. It's a direct energy input creating complex patterns.
Okay, so solar particles, magnetic field, atmospheric gases getting excited. Light show ensues. That's the science
That's
picture.
a textbook picture, yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. For ages, people haven't just seen light up there. They've seen more.
Oh, definitely. Across so many cultures, especially those in the high latitudes, auroras weren't just, pretty lights. They were imbued with meaning, often spiritual meaning.
Like the Sami people in Northern Europe, did they see them as spirits?
Exactly. Ancestral spirits, often. And you find similar ideas with Inuit cultures, tales of the souls of the departed dancing in the sky. It's striking how often they were linked to something alive.
And weren't there stories from early explorers, too? People who felt the auroras were reacting to them.
Yeah, some anecdotal accounts, stories of the light seeming to shift or pulse in response to noises or movements down on the ice. Adds another layer of mystery, doesn't it?
It really does. So it begs the question, is there anything in how auroras actually behave, scientifically observed behavior, that might echo these older ideas? Something beyond just the physics?
And that's where some modern observations come in. Scientists have documented auroras forming these incredibly complex, self-organizing patterns. It's not just a smooth curtain. You see folds, spirals, rays, constantly changing.
Self-organizing, like life does.
Well, that's the provocative comparison. And then there's the pulsing. Auroras aren't always steady. They can flicker or pulse rhythmically. Some researchers have noted these pulses look, well, somewhat like biological rhythms.
Rhythms. And didn't you mention something about localized activity?
Yeah, sometimes you see distinct patches within a larger aurora that seem to be doing their own thing, evolving almost independently for a while.
Okay, but wait. Lots of non-living things self-organize, right? Like weather systems or sand dunes or even chemical reactions. What makes aurora patterns potentially different?
I'm
Lifelike.
That is the absolute crucial question, and it forces us to think about what we even mean by life. The standard biology definition, metabolism, reproduction, homeostasis, responding to things, evolution,
The checklist we learned in school.
pretty much. And that works fine for life as we know it here. But when you start thinking about life elsewhere, maybe truly alien life, that definition might be too narrow, too earthbound.
So astrobiology pushes for a broader definition.
Exactly. Maybe life isn't about what it's made of, like carbon and water, but about what it does. The source material we looked at brought up this idea, like life is basically any system that can self-organize, pull in energy from its surroundings, and process information in some way.
Okay, that definitely opens things up.
Mhm.
Energy in, information processing, self-organization.
It's a much wider net, and suddenly things we wouldn't normally consider alive might potentially fit. Like, could complex plasma structures in the upper atmosphere qualify?
Plasma, remind us.
It's often called the fourth state of matter, like a gas, but so hot that electrons are stripped from the atoms. So you have the soup of charged particles, ions, and electrons. It responds really strongly to electromagnetic fields.
Which is perfect for auroras, interacting with Earth's magnetic field.
Precisely. Stars are plasma, lightning is plasma, auroras are plasma phenomena. So the idea pops up, could you have plasma-based life?
And the complex behaviors we see in auroras, the self-organization, the pulsing, could that be seen as, like, the metabolism or information processing of a plasma system?
That's the intriguing speculation. The podcast mentioned this concept of complex adaptive systems potentially forming in plasma, systems that don't just exist, but maybe adapt to changing energy inputs from the sun, for example.
And wasn't there a paper mentioned, Citovich?
Yeah.
About plasma crystals?
Yes, Citovich and colleagues back in 2007, they explored theoretically how, under certain conditions in dusty plasmas, these intricate, stable, crystal-like structures could form spontaneously. And these structures could potentially exhibit behaviors like replication and information storage, challenging that living, non-living boundary.
Wow. Inorganic living matter. That's a leap.
It's a huge conceptual leap. We're so used to thinking life has to be organic, carbon-based. But then again, plasma is the most common state of visible matter out there. Over 99% of the universe we can see.
Stars, nebulae.
Right. So if plasma can support lifelike processes, the universe might be a very different place than we imagine.
And what about those lab experiments mentioned? With dusty plasmas, what are they seeing there?
Oh, that's fascinating stuff. In labs, they can create these complex or dusty plasmas, basically plasma with tiny particles suspended in it, and they observe things that look remarkably like life processes.
Like what?
Well, like self-replication of structures. You can get these stable plasma vortices or strings that seem to divide and create copies of themselves.
Seriously, plasma copying itself. In a lab.
It sounds like sci-fi, but it's been observed under specific conditions. And they've also seen signs of what looks like communication waves propagating through the plasma, allowing different structures to interact, and systems for cycling energy, taking it in, using it, releasing it.
So replication, communication, energy use.
Yeah.
Those sound awfully close to that biological checklist.
They do, don't they? Which leads directly to that big provocative question from the podcast. Could some auroras be more than just plasma physics? Could they be acting like proto-life?
Oh.
Or maybe even some form of non-carbon intelligence?
It's a massive what if.
It really is. Now, the podcast also mentioned that Korea paper from 2001 about detecting orgone energy. We should be clear, as they were, this is considered pretty fringe science.
Right, not mainstream.
Not at all. But it was likely included to show the spectrum of thinking about weird atmospheric energy stuff, even if it's controversial. It touches on subtle energy phenomena, which kind of ties into the theme.
Okay, so stepping back from the fringe, if we were to seriously entertain this idea of living light, what would that even look like? It wouldn't be like bacteria or animals, obviously.
No, completely different. The speculation goes,
Yeah.
maybe its energy source is the solar wind itself. It eats charged particles.
Okay, and its body, its structure.
Held together by electromagnetic fields, maybe? Not membranes and cells, but patterns of energy and charge. Internal coherence maintained by fields.
And communication, or information processing.
Maybe through those pulses and oscillations we see. Rhythms and waves carrying information within the structure or even between structures, like less nerves, more. Resonant frequencies.
And it would exist where? Up there in the atmosphere, at these boundary layers.
Possibly. In those regions where energy flows are complex. And here's a key thing. This kind of life wouldn't leave fossils, would it?
No bones made of light.
Exactly. No physical structures we could dig up. It would be ephemeral, existing only as long as the energy flows sustain it.
The podcast used that phrase, resonant field beings.
Yeah, this idea of life existing as patterns of energy, interacting with the world maybe subtly through fields. Intelligence not necessarily needing neurons, but perhaps existing in the complexity of the waves and pulses themselves.
Man, if any of this has even a sliver of truth to it, the implications are huge across the board.
Oh, completely. Think about astrobiology. Our whole search for life is geared towards finding water, organic molecules, habitable zones in the traditional sense.
This would mean we need to look for complex energy patterns, too. Self-organizing plasma.
Potentially, yes. And what about philosophy? The philosophy of mind. If awareness, even proto-awareness, can arise in electromagnetic fields, that challenges everything we think about consciousness being tied to brains.
Biological brains, yeah. And earth science. Could there be this whole other biosphere almost, an energetic one, right, alongside the biological one we know?
An overlooked companion biosphere.
Yeah.
It's a mind-bending thought.
It circles back to those ancient myths again. Could they have been? Not just stories, but maybe intuitive perceptions. People sensing something about the energetic nature of auroras that science is only now maybe starting to probe with different tools.
It's possible. Maybe pre-scientific cultures were more attuned to perceiving energy fields in ways we aren't now. It leaves us, and leaves you listening, with some really deep questions, doesn't it?
Definitely. Like, are we looking at something alive up there and just not having the right framework to see it? Are our tools, our language, even our concepts just not equipped for this?
Could our current science be missing something fundamental about organization and information in energy fields?
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've explored this really far out but fascinating idea. Auroras showing lifelike traits. It pushes boundaries, challenges definitions.
Yeah, it forces you to ask, what is organization, really? Could consciousness exist without biology? Are we potentially surrounded by life forms we just don't recognize?
Loads to think about. We really encourage you to mull over these questions. The nature of complexity, awareness beyond biology.
And whether we're seeing something truly profound happening right above our heads.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. Those beautiful dancing lights. Are they just physics? Or could they be something more? A form of living energy, maybe even aware in some way we can barely imagine, that we're only just starting to consider.
Something to ponder next time you see them, or even just look up at the night sky.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.